Meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. We would like to welcome everyone to the regular January board meeting. And at this time, we would like everyone to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could, please remember our fellow board member, Mr. Billy Bennett. He is going through an illness right now, so that's why he is not here to join us tonight. So if you all could just remember him tonight. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are now to review of the agenda and adoption of the agenda. Anybody have anything they need to change? Since there's only 3 of us tonight, we have to agree unanimously on everything or it will not pass. Just so y'all are aware.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
A motion by Ms. Hall,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Dorsey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Consider approval of minutes for the December 12th, 2023 regular meeting. We're all here, right? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Motion by Richie, second by Ms. Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 3-0. Consider acceptance of the resignation of Mr. William Tobby, District 1 Board Member, and declare a vacancy for District 1.
I'll make a motion to accept Mr. Tobby's resignation.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Hall, second by Mr. Dorsey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Do we have, to declare the vacancy, do we need a separate motion for that one, or is it kind of hand in hand, Becky?
I think it's all together. I think you can do it separately.
Okay.
Or together unless you did.
Okay, so now that Mr. Tobby's resignation has been accepted, they will run an ad for 2 weeks. After that, then they will close that. We will come in and we will call a special meeting. We will all meet, see if we can agree on a board member and hopefully get one appointed for the 4th time. So this time, we are hoping we can get somebody just like we did with Ms. Hall, Mr. Bennett, and Mr. Dorsey that will be here for the long term to finish out Mr. Tobby's term. Well, actually, I think they will have to run in November. Did you ever clarify on that one?
Just send an email. Yeah, they will. If there's more than 1 year remaining in his term as of August 1st, which I believe there is, correct?
December 2026 is the end of this
Yes.
term.
So they will have to run again at the next election, which is November.
But isn't there a thing too, though, where you can't have 4 members running at the same time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I know we had talked about that. You were gonna check into it, so.
They
but-
typically stagger them, but this is in a
yeah.
weird situation.
Okay, so we will have 4 running at the same time. So yes, they will come in, we will appoint somebody, and then there will be a special election added they will have to register by August? June?
Yeah, I think it's June to be on the November ballot because it's nonpartisan.
Okay. So anybody that's interested, they will get a
If you
view.
get applications, you can pick them up at central office, or you can email one, and we'll have them on the website as well.
Starting tomorrow.
Yes.
All right. Come join us. We're really fun. We think we are. Okay. Now on to Clark County Public Schools Board of Education recognition.
Miss Christie Bush.
Yeah, Miss Christy Bush.
Good evening. January 2024 is recognized as Clark County School Board Recognition Month. This is a proclamation by our mayor, Ms. Joellen Reed, and our judge executive, Mr. Les Yates. Whereas our community values a quality education as a vital step along the pathways to succeed for our children, and whereas Dora Hall, Billy Bennett, Ben Dorsey, and Ashley Ritchie contribute greatly to this community through their service on the Clark County Board of Education, and whereas these decision makers are responsible for maintaining strong, effective budgetary oversight, high standards for employment, and a safe, well-managed set of school facilities, and whereas these board members are serving our community with integrity, honor, and commitment to our children's future, and whereas January 2024 marks Kentucky's observation of their contribution through School Board Recognition Month, therefore be it resolved that we are hereby proclaiming the month of January 2024 as the School Board Recognition Month. And we all in Winchester and Clark County urge, I'm speaking for Ms. Joellen and Mr. Yates, in Winchester and Clark County, we urge all citizens to honor Dora Hall, Bill Bennett, Ben Dorsey, and Ashley Ritchie for their service.
Thank you.
Miss Ashley Ritchie.
Yeah, well, you guys get to come up front now.
Thanks.
Picture time.
Everybody together?
Yeah, we'll get it right together.
Mr. Ben Dorsey. And Miss Dora Hall.
Thank you, sir.
Really appreciate you.
Officially, we will turn this over to Ms. Smith.
You guys get ready to crowd. We're gonna take lots of pictures here in a minute.
You want to hold that up? Yeah? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of excitement and talent in this room this evening. The following students auditioned for and were selected to perform in the Kentucky Band Organizational All-State Middle School Band. These students were required to record and submit a lengthy and difficult audition that included 9 separate musical selections. They were competing against students from all over the state, and they were ranked according to their score versus other students auditioning on the same instrument. Congratulations to 3 of our wonderful students. Miss Sophie Smeeg, who is a first place percussionist. Miss Ella Pace, 6th grade, chair flute. And Miss Ashlyn McDaniel, 14th chair, clarinet, and we'll have yours delivered first
In the middle. Good call, good call.
Ready?
Everybody get pictures, Mama? Congratulations, guys.
okay? Miss Ashlyn will deliver that personally. Okay, sweetie? All right. The following students auditioned for and were selected to perform in the KMEA District 7 Honor Band. They competed against students from Fayette, Scott, Harrison, Bourbon, Jessamine, and Franklin counties. 18 of our RDC students were selected and 5 were selected as alternates, so 23 total. This is the largest representation RDC has had in the band in the school's history. As I call your name, if you'll please come up with Mr. Howard. Sebastian Allgood. Ben Bartholomew. Hayden Ashcraft. Sarah Osborne Mason. Avery Torrey, is that correct? Cameron Boyd.
Here you go, son. Congratulations. You probably stand in the back and still be seen. Just point that out. There you
Alita
go.
Cypherhill. Sorry. Aaliyah Daniel. Miss Ashlyn McDonald. Autumn Skinner. Saul Cebulski. Allison Moore. Miss Ella Pace. Sophie Smee. Noah Groves. And Miss Gabriella Maldonado. How did I misspell it? Maldonado. It's a mouthful. I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna take that out, sorry.
We'll just pass that one to you. We'll pass that one.
Can they switch in?
I wish you. I'm gonna be Commissioner Speaks, the band director, he'll direct the picture now.
Go to back.
Is this supposed to?
Here's Daniel did as well. He must have got like.
Congratulations, my friend, definitely get this picture. Good job, good job. Does this work?
Okay, don't leave.
We'll push the pause. Uh-oh.
Okay, can you take your certificate down a little bit from in front of your face? Can you go that way a little bit? Yes.
Where we get it?
All right. Yeah, you know what to do. Okay, everybody good? Everybody ready? Here we go. Great, thank you all.
Before everybody goes, I do want to say one quick thing. Biggest number ever in the history of the band. It would be remiss if I didn't brag on our very own Calvin Speed. He's doing great things, speed up this band program, we'll bring home state championships. The other lady I want to brag on is Miss Becky McCoy, our board attorney. We could not do the work we do as a board without her guidance, so please give her a big round of applause. Go-karts, big time go-karts. There we go.
Thank you
Got a truck on burn up.
Have seven coming.
Have a nice quiet board meeting.
All right. No public comments. And we are moving on to consider approval of school board district realignment. This was tabled because Mr. Dorsey couldn't be here in the December meeting.
Yeah, yes.
That was a special meeting. Was it a special meeting? Or were you, did you?
You guys are ready.
Yeah. I don't think you weren't here for that, were you? You must have been.
We talked about it. Yeah, that's what
You want me to?
Yeah,
Review
sorry,
anything?
Stephen, this ain't it's not a you thing.
Oh, and I didn't know how much you wanted me to go into.
Yeah, that's
I mean, we have only one board member that wasn't there, so I didn't know if I wanted to bore you all with the details of it again. I'll just go through the highlights for Mr. Dorsey. So what happened is 2020 happened, and there was a census, and as Kentucky law requires, and this has nothing to do with the school board yet, this is the intro, is that the fiscal court is required to redistrict itself every census. So, and this census, 2020, there were some hiccups. It was delayed by COVID. And so the redistricting happened 2023 for the fiscal court. And what we were to do is we were to take the fiscal court districts and balance the population of those fiscal court districts as nearly as humanly possible. And go ahead, next one. So this is on the screen is the timeline that the fiscal court did their changes to the maps. And after the magistrate districts were accepted by the fiscal court, then we had to step back with the county court clerk and redraw with the local board of elections the precincts in order to balance out the voting in each of those districts. So the idea there is we use the voters for that piece, and we try to balance the number of voters so that on election day, a location is not overloaded with a bunch of people and another location has no people and that sort of situation. Next. So just FYI, there are 5 school board districts for Clark County, and the only thing really on the books, I mean, there's another couple of clauses on the books, but really it only mentions the need to establish school board districts back in 1950, and there are some rules as far as in law that require you to not break school board districts across precinct lines, and we also try to balance the population in each of the school board districts. So there are 5 school board districts by law, and there are 6 fiscal court districts, so we can't just plug one into one. We have to make a new district rearrangement for the school board. So, and like I said, the school board precincts are made up, the school board districts are made up of precincts as like little puzzle pieces that go into each district. So go ahead. And this is the list of the old precincts and the old school board districts and how they align. And it's kind of hard to see, but the districts, and then there's the precincts that make up each of those districts. And at the time that I took this picture, those were the school board members that represented those districts. And then on the far right is the actual election, the term end date of that particular school board member. So go ahead, Justin, thanks. And so looking over the school board districts and the balance of the population, this is how the population broke down for the precincts before we did any changes. And then actually this shows the movement of precincts from one fiscal court district to another fiscal court district. And we did do a couple of things. We dissolved the Winchester precinct and we created a new precinct called Colby. And that was in order to rearrange those precincts to give a nice balance to the population. But go ahead. So currently, if we just took that list of precincts that make it up each board district from the county clerk's office, and we just moved all those precincts wholesale into the districts that they would align with after we rejiggered all the precincts, this is the balance of the population for each school board district. And as you can see, there's a wide range of population differences throughout the 5 districts. And so the spread, the highest populated to the lowest populated districts, there's a spread of what I call 62%. And that's just, one is 32 high and the other is around 30 low. And so that's not a good balance. So what we were tasked with is to balance those out a little bit better. And go ahead. And so you can flip these maps. These are just some maps showing what kind of changes were done to the precincts and where they were moved in the fiscal court and school board situation. But so we came up with the first option, and this is kind of option 2. There's this option 3. Option 2 is not one that you want to go to, which is totally redrawing all of the districts and making the population as close as scientifically possible to each other, but at the same time you end up lumping school board members in the same district, and you move a lot of voters, which doesn't make the voters happy and all that kind of stuff. So that one was just a non-starter. So this is the one that is the most palatable to everybody, I mean, in my opinion, is that we allocated the precincts to each of those districts to come up with this scenario where there's actually a total spread of only 10% from the highest to the lowest, which there's only like a 250 low and 542 high, and I forget exactly which district the area behind Lowe's is, but that district is a little bit low in this scenario, and it has room for growth. So over the next 10 years, we should be able to, the district should be able to keep pace with that population growth. So go ahead, Justin. That was it? Yeah. And so we want to call it, see if that map works. So before the meeting, I just made this web map, so if y'all wanted to look at anything, this is the option 2, I guess, or option 3, if you want to call it that, and we can look at any boundary lines or locations that you want to, and the colors are just the individual school board district areas, and the blue lines there, which you can barely see, those are the precinct boundaries there. So I was just bringing this to the board for their consideration, and I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have.
I don't really have any questions. We kind of discussed it before. I was already in agreement that it kind of needed to be equal. It makes plenty, makes sense, so.
And I think, because he just ended up getting the ones I had downtown, right? That's what we
Right,
ended
yeah.
up, and I still have Kidville, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
So
then
which district are you
I'm
exactly? 5?
he's 4.
So, yeah, so
Right.
yellow is District 5.
Up there, not- Are you okay
Yeah,
with it?
oh, I don't care.
Okay. I can't see that far back, so.
I just have to look for my color. I've always been purple. You didn't change me, did I?
No, you're yellow now.
I'm yellow?
You're yellow.
Oh, Stephen, we gotta go back to purple. You're gonna confuse me. So what color are you?
Blue.
Sorry, Justin, you're having to drive back there.
And pull pink it up, so I can see District 2, there we go. Alright. So that hasn't changed. I think the only thing in my district is right here, we moved District 3, moved back behind Kroger, like Essex and those, correct?
Right.
Okay. And so this is
we were looking at in December, it's option 3, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't gain, I think I lost, right? I think I gave to Ben.
Yeah,
Hey, I lost it.
My people are,
I lost it.
I got good people. You got good people.
They're all good people.
Take care of my people.
Tables. Tables. Yeah, so, District 5 went from 7,900 to 7,100. And District 2 is the one that lost the most. They went from 9,800 population to 7,800, so it had a 2,000 person.
But it makes sense because that's the fastest growing area.
Yeah,
So,
it had to give
That's what
to
it
get.
and it made, so me and Mr. Bennett actually discussed it the last time, like when we were looking at it, and it pulls Holiday Hills all into one district, and it had, school district, it had been all meshed up, so.
Chopped up, yeah.
Chopped up, so, I mean, the option 3 made the most sense at the time, when we were looking the last time.
So you all are both good with option 3?
I am, even though I can't vote on it.
You can't what?
Since I guess.
No, you
I
can
could
vote on
here,
it now, yeah.
So-
So it's brought back.
So as long as we're unanimous.
Because we
you're good.
we tabled it.
Is it okay if I ask him a question? So, if we approve this, does that become effective? What's the time frame for it to be effective? For it to become effective?
Well, and that's for your attorney to, I am not, and that's the thing is, the school board reapportionment is woefully inadequate on direction from anywhere, even from the state board of elections. They just said that we needed to bring a plan to the school board and have them approve it in an open meeting.
Okay.
And it's not, this body is not like the city or the county where it's like they have different types of legislative business that have different processes. So like an ordinance has to have 2 readings, but I don't think this is, I mean, this is a different animal here, so it doesn't have that same requirement or restriction on it. I think as long as you approve it, it pretty much takes effect immediately and will apply to the upcoming election in November.
The statute says you have to notify the county clerk within 60 days, and then it says if the deadline is within 60 days of August 1st, which you're before that, then it's established. So I think it would be established before the next election, the way I read that.
So I guess my question is, since we will be in the process of appointing someone for District 1, how much is District 1 affected by this drawing? Or the,
I think it was the least affected.
Yeah, District 1 had very few changes.
I think it was mostly like on not Belmont, Colby Road, I think is where it was. I think it pulled it over, because I think District 1 had gone into,
Zoom into
I
the
just-
center of the map.
just in case.
No, I know.
The purple area.
I wanted to like touch it and make it go out, because I would touch it.
it was a screen.
So yeah, that area didn't change very much at
Didn't
all.
change,
That-
okay.
And like I said, since the school board districts are not one-to-one with the fiscal court districts, we were able to maintain some of that continuity between the old maps and these maps. We didn't have to move the precincts around all that much.
Ms. Ritchie, you asked a question, and it relates back to this earlier about the terms.
Mm-hmm.
I looked that up while we've been sitting here, and the statute does say you're supposed to have two, and then 3 on an election cycle, but it says if there's a vacancy, that trumps it. So, but what happens is after the vacant term is, they would just fill the remainder of the vacant term, and then everybody should be back on schedule after that, if they fill that initial term. Does that make sense?
So they
It'll take
will
for a while.
run.
It'll take a while for this board to get back on schedule. But once the term that the person was appointed to fill runs,
It should be back on schedule then after this election, because 4 of us will run.
like the vacancy that was announced tonight.
Right, they'll run with us.
They'll run, but they will only run to fill the remainder of that term.
Right, and then
So
they'll
upon the
run.
remainder of that term, they'll run, and so then everybody should be back on
Yeah.
schedule after they, if that makes sense.
Yes, gotcha.
It's confusing.
I knew there was something with
There is
Tahoe letting
something, yeah.
somebody run, that many run at one time. Because they don't want majority to leave at one time.
Yeah, for
'Cause-
obvious reasons.
Yeah. You and Justin can hold it down.
We got it.
So like, even though you just ran, you're just gonna fill the remainder of the term that you were appointed to fill, and then
And I
run
have to
again.
run.
Yeah,
Yeah, this year.
yeah.
And then.
Then you'll be back on schedule.
Yeah.
All right, well, did you all have any more questions? If not, does anybody want to make a motion?
We need to word this, is there a specific option that we need to
I
have?
guess it's option 3.
Well, we can establish the name as option 3, and it is the one that's being displayed here, and the one that is in the presentation as the,
I'll make,
as the final.
Do you have
10%
this?
spread.
Do you have that map, this one, Bev? So if people call you, because it might be a, okay.
Yes, it's online, right? Questions about it.
It is now, yeah. It was not this morning.
Okay, as long as she has access to it, if people call,
Right.
wanting to know if they're in District 1.
So this is, option 3 is the one that I presented last time and is in my presentation and is recorded in the map that is online. And I can provide you with a paper copies of that.
That would
as
be
soon as
great.
you
Thank you.
Okay,
approve it.
so what was your, okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve option 3 of the school board district realignment.
All right, motion by Mr. Dorsey,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 3-0. All right, you're done finally.
And I'll send Mr. Howard a link to that web map so you guys
Perfect, and then I
can
can send it.
distribute it and look at it. All right.
Sounds great.
Thank
And
you.
before you leave, I do want to thank you for being patient, but also your hard work in this, and also Michelle Turner's office, but specifically Mr. Barry has really done work on this. And again, I just want to publicly thank you.
We definitely
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
dealing with our grumpiness, mine, grumpiness while we went through it.
And explaining it.
I wish
pretty
you
well.
were special, but you're not.
Start messing with our people, we get upset.
Yeah, I know.
No, we do appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Acknowledgement of preschool construction update and Phoenix project update. Brian Buckner and Paul Christie.
I'm Brian with Rawstarn Architects. I'm a senior project architect with the firm. Emily Wolf is with us. She's also an architect in our office. Her and I have been primarily leading a lot of the efforts on the preschool project, along with Randy, of course. We're doing pretty well. So the last time that we came and presented was in October, and I think if you all recall at that time, we were just starting to get some of the steel on site, starting to kind of start erecting in the Area A and Area B portion of the building. So they were starting to set columns, and we kind of talked about how once that occurs, once the framing is complete, all the cold form exterior studs and the interior studs will just kind of fly through. So, here just a couple months later, it seems like we have a building all of a sudden. So this is a good time to kind of come back and share where things are, and just kind of touch base on schedule and some of the upcoming work that's coming through in the next few months. So kind of a quick overview of some of the work that's been complete by the subcontractors on the project. Calcruth, who's the roofing contractor, they have installed approximately 50% of the lightweight concrete on Area B, so that's what goes up on top of the roof deck. This forms the substrate that our membrane will adhere to, so that lightweight insulated concrete has insulation inside of it, brings up the R value for the insulated control for the roof system. So this is a really critical part of the path of construction for the building. We want to make sure that all of these areas get under roof as fast as possible. Obviously, we're in winter. You all saw what we've had happen here the past couple weeks, both with temperatures and with snow. This is something that is temperature dependent. It has a lot of water, so being able to tie into one of the hydrants there on site to provide the amount of water that's needed to create and mix the lightweight concrete, and then to be able to apply it and allow it to set and cure with the right amount of time is complicated in winter. But we do, here in Kentucky, we do have time frames where it's possible to install that. So they're doing the best they can with weather considerations moving forward. But we have areas that are under concrete right now, which is allowing them to now work on some of the under ceiling installations. And we'll show that in a minute. Rising Sun Development, they are the general trades contractor on the project. They have installed, one of their big milestones was the finish of the storm shelter. The concrete cap has been installed over that portion of the building. We'll show some photos of that here in a minute. CKSM, they're the mechanical contractor. They've roughed in all of the roof drains on the building to date. And they have also started to commence overhead rough-in work. So the initial layouts of the duct work and connections that are being made there under the areas that we have lightweight insulated concrete installed so that it won't be damaged by water. Fade Electrical is the electrical contractor on the project. They have begun excavation and the installation of conduit for the primary power for the building that is going to feed the mechanical room. In the meantime, they have temporary power that's been installed and established for the mechanical room for the building. They have also begun in-wall and overhead rough-in in areas A and B. So they're starting to get the conduit located, boxes, J-boxes for the electrical connections are being installed currently. East Kentucky Masonry, they're a mason. They have installed all of the CMU on the building, and they're wrapping up the last few locations. So one of the areas that you'll see here in a minute is the parapet wall that goes around the storm shelter. It's a disconnected parapet for the ICC 500 code, where we have a concrete cap, and I'll explain that in the photos here in a minute. The last area that they have is a restroom, a gang restroom that's in the middle of the building that has CMU walls. So once they're finished with that, they will just about be wrapped up until we get masonry, brick masonry materials in March, and they will immediately begin installation at that point. SLA Enterprises is the steel contractor. They've completed area A, B, C, and the alternate. All of the steel is complete to date. The last remaining items they have are some minor detailing items on steel that they will kind of be wrapping up here in the next couple of months. Bennett's Contracting is the framing contractor. They've got a large portion of the work here, and they're also, like the others, they're a great outfit as well. They've done a ton of work for us on various projects. They've completed the area A, B, and C exterior framing as well as the alternate one. And they've also completed the interior stud framing in area A. So we'll share some photos of that here as well. If y'all recall the last time that we were here, we showed kind of a progression from some drone photos. We don't have any from this month, but the last one we have is towards the early December, so it's not too far off from where we are right now. So I want to go ahead and share that with you all here. So you'll see here in this last image that all of the steel decking. Oops.
We want to say it again.
We've got other photos I explain. So I think it's a restart again. One of the big items that was completed was the retaining wall on the northeast side of the site. What this allows us to do in this photo is we had to do a lot of regrading, both for flattening the site where the building was being located, pushing that soil this way so we didn't have to take soil off site, which is expensive. In doing so, this also created a large flat area for us to allow the apparent drop-off loop to occur. So what this retaining wall is doing is effectively protecting the drive aisles that come through the building. This is the main entrance here in the canopy. All right, here we go. So this is a drone photo again back in December. So things have progressed a little bit more. You'll see in some of the other photos, but this is a really great image both in terms of the clarity of it, but being able to kind of see the work that's been done to date. What you'll notice here on the areas A and B portion of the building, we have steel decking that's down. So the lightweight insulated concrete gets poured directly on top of that. That concrete is sloped to the roof drain, so that's what creates your slope to all of the roof drain locations. And then this portion of the building here is the storm shelter. This is one of the other classroom wings of the building. And so you can see here that they have completed the concrete cap that goes over the building. So the concrete that's here is tied directly to the rebar that goes through the CMU cells, so the cinder block cells. And then all of that is filled in with concrete all the way around the building, so it kind of effectively creates itself as a hardened concrete shell. What the masons are working on right now is where you see the rebar that's extending above that roof level, they're laying a couple courses worth of CMU block that will create the parapet condition. That has to be separated from the concrete cap. So typically in the normal construction, we would have CMU walls that would go up and beyond the roof continuously, but the concrete cap has to be leveled to the edge of the CMU because it's creating that encasement. So in the event that there's a tornado, that top of the CMU can be torn off without affecting the concrete cap. It's subjected to higher wind loads typically. Then you can also see all of the completion of the framing here over the multi-purpose area, as well as the media center on the front, where we have the clear story windows that look into the building to provide daylight. Looking from the front side of the building here, so this is the administrative area and main entrance canopy. This is the other classroom kind of block on this side. At this point, steel is still under construction for the alternate portion of the classrooms. That's been complete at this point. But it's just kind of good images of the progress here. This was today. One of the contractors went ahead and sent this to me, so you'll still see some of the snow on the ground. But this is the playground area on the plain east side of the building, so the side that faces Strode. And so you'll see that we've got the classroom areas that spill directly into the playground area here. We will have a protective wall that kind of encloses this area of the building and protects it from the bus drives and access on that side of the building. And then in the background, you can see the slope roof for the multi-purpose area. They're framing the blocking around all the window locations. So you see there's going to be a lot of daylight, natural daylight into the building. What you're seeing on this side is all the exterior gypboard that's being installed. So the insulation will be sprayed directly onto the outside of that. Once that's complete, they'll be able to start the brick masonry on those areas of the building. This is inside of the multi-purpose rooms. You can see the clear story windows that face to the south side. Lots of natural daylight will be allowed into that area. They're installing, you can see all the steel stud framing here that's located. The lower side of this is where the kitchen's located, so this is the entrance to the kitchen service line area. This is one of the main corridors of the building that's looking towards the multi-purpose room. So you'll see the multi-purpose room, the clear story windows that we just showed in the previous image. So this is all from today, so this gives you kind of a good indication of where things are right now. A lot of stud work has been completed, and it goes really fast. So considering where we were kind of in October, and now it's quite a bit different. This is the last remaining bit of CMU that we have on the project over the parapet wall. They're constructing that through the large gained restroom in the central part of the building that will serve community needs as well as kind of general building use. And this is one of the classrooms in its current state right here. This is from today. So you see that the walls have been framed out for the classrooms as well as storage areas and the restrooms that service each of the classrooms. You can see the window locations, and you can start to see that we've got wood blocking installed between the studs for casework and TVs, boards, things like that will be mounted to that after the fact. And then you can also see that the above ceiling work is kind of commencing. So we see the above ceiling conduits running to the electrical boxes and the wiring is occurring. So we're in the middle of doing a lot of coordination right now between the trades, making sure that things are fitting correctly with the ceiling heights, and they're about to start running pretty quickly and all that work. This is in the storm shelter side, so it's a little bit different because we've got the poured concrete roof slab there. But you're starting to see the initial ductwork installation feeding back to the corridor and the units that will be in the ceiling of the extended learning areas. And then we're dropping in again with the conduit extensions into the building, and they're starting sprinkler lines and plumbing as we speak. Again, in this part of the building, we have the door frames installed as that goes up with the masonry, so there's just kind of a little bit different levels of completion based on the type of construction in those areas. And this is the mock-up panel that's out close to Frontier Drive right now. So the masonry has been installed for that as well as the metal panel. So you see here, this is the masonry pattern that we have. Keep in mind, this is only 8 feet tall, so the building walls are taller than that. So we actually have the pattern actually continues in more of a gradient that lightens up as we get taller towards the top of the parapet. But I think it looks really nice. We ran into a little bit of an issue with brick procurement. I think we've all been kind of understanding where things are right now with construction. We're having a lot of material delays for certain things. So far, we've managed to be okay in terms of the entirety of the schedule. There's a couple kind of pieces, parts to that have been a little bit of a hiccup, masonry being one of those. We won't actually be able to get the masonry until March. So that was not something that we had envisioned early on when the project began. Now, at the end of the day, the masonry does go quickly, so it won't be able to affect other parts of the schedule, but it's just one of those things. The switch gear is still something that's looking like it's going to be here in the summer. That is a major component, so making sure that that stays on schedule so they can complete the work, or they complete the connections to the electrical system is really critical in terms of finishing up in the substantial completion of the building. But wanted to kind of share this with you. One of the things that we ran into, actually, the brick size that we have is what's called an ambassador brick, so it's two nominal bricks that are put together. It's the same length as that. And so they could not get that particular brick size in time for the mock-up panel, so we just had them kind of remove one of the head joints and push them together so at least we could get the scale correct. So if you look at it really closely, you'll notice that there's kind of some additional line work in there that doesn't have border, and that's intentional for the color confirmation. And so you can start to see some of the exterior renderings that we have of the building and start to kind of relate that back to the exterior materials that we have here. And future work, so upcoming major milestones. Area B sprinkler roofing will be complete. They're moving on that right now as we speak. The roofing installation continues on the building. Completion of the exterior framing in Area C and the alternate number 1. Completed the CMU installation of the restrooms and storm shelter, electrical rough ends in areas C and A. The wood blocking installation in all the remaining areas, as well as plumbing rough ends, the mechanical rough ends, and then the connections to the domestic water and the rough ends for the plumbing. So, lots going on. So I think that, again, it's one of those things like, the next couple of months we'll come back and do another presentation as kind of an update. You'll start to see more activity inside the building. Now we're getting into that phase where you won't be able to see a lot of the work that's happening directly from the outside, but you're starting to see things show up in the interior portion.
Is all the interior framing cold form except for the blocking?
So, no, typically what we have, we use light gauge framing on the interior of the building. So the cold form occurs on the exterior. It's got a different density of material. So we use that really, it's extremely strong. So the subjection to the wind loads, the masonry ties that tie back to that, it's very supportive for that. But once you get into the building, we use light gauge metal.
Looks good.
It's come along. I mean,
What do you think, Bill?
It's awesome. Thanks for asking.
We've had at least one construction tour so far with them. It's been really, it's been neat to see that, especially now that the walls are up. You can start to feel like you're inside the classroom space, and that's going to continue to change once the board goes up, once the roof gets on and everything. So it's coming along. Codell's doing a great job. Subcontractors are doing a great job. If we can get past some of the hiccups of some of the material delays, I mean that's the only thing that we're kind of fighting right now other than the weather. So
What are the odds of the switch gear getting pushed again?
I would like to think that they can't, that they would not push that again. Based on when the contractor placed the order and got into the queue for that, I've not seen them pushing them out. It's like an initial order kind of dictates when you're going to be placed. And so when they placed the order at the very beginning of the project, we knew that was one of the long lead time items. It was longer than expected at that time.
Yeah,
to my knowledge, it has not changed date. But it's something that we're certainly keeping an eye on.
Yeah,
That would be the
as long
one.
as nothing else changes.
Yeah. So, the masonry was a surprise. We've had some issues with insulation and roofing and things like that largely the contractors have been able to kind of overcome. I think that stretch between November and Christmas, they really moved really quickly once the steel was complete. And so that's allowing them to, we have hiccups like the snow and everything like that. It's allowing a little bit of a buffer for them, so.
Questions? Thank you.
Yeah, much appreciated.
I'll give a quick kind of update for Phoenix. I know you all have seen kind of updates for this, but Phoenix Academy, the building behind RBC, just kind of walk through the plans and answer any questions you all might have. So the work that was completed over this past year in filling the existing classroom here on the plan west, looking, kind of coming back into this again, looking at the existing lab spaces and how those might be renovated to serve the Phoenix Academy programming, and then also looking at areas for future CTE possibilities there in the building. We've taken the documents, we've got kind of a good step with those. And we're gonna be kind of handing off things quite a bit here to the engineers here very shortly. But want to kind of walk through what we would consider to be the schematic design for the renovation of that facility. So if you all are familiar with this building, the parking area is kind of off to the plan east, so it's the gated area that you enter. All of this is being used right now for maintenance, storage and maintenance programming. The main entrance of the building here kind of faces closer towards the back of RDC. So the corridor area is highlighted here in yellow, and what you're seeing here is the dark gray walls that are infill or existing wall locations. Everything else is what's being kind of added to infill those, and we've color coded everything that's part of the new work outside of the corridor. We don't see a lot of corridor work happening other than kind of taking ceiling tiles down and electrical connections, things like that, duct work. So otherwise, we're not touching the finishes in the corridor if possible. Couple big things. So the existing open lab space all the way down on the plain west is going to infill with Phoenix Academy classroom, as well as one of their group rooms for kind of small group work. And then a series of offices. So we have 2 existing storage rooms here that are there as we speak. Both of those are right around the size of an office. So kind of converting those into office space, and then be able to add 2 additional offices that kind of create a small kind of office suite for that program. There seems to make a lot of sense for that, as well as providing a new electrical entry, as well as a storage room that gives it kind of buffer access to that. On the other existing open lab space, where we have the kind of an automotive set of equipment in there, we've got the lift and everything in there currently. That will be renovated to have the STEM kind of equipment classroom, as well as the CBA room and a large flex room to be determined for future use. We will take over an existing storage room here that can be turned over into a food warming area for bringing food to the building. They don't have a kitchen here, obviously, so being able to bring food, being able to hold it, and be able to distribute it to the students for lunch is going to be a little bit better served with having a warming kitchen there. Then obviously the 2 other remaining labs will be a future kind of infill renovation project. One of the big components of this is the increase in students in this building is going to change the plumbing fixture requirements for the plumbing code. So one of the things that we had to look at really closely was the existing restrooms here are off of this main kind of entry lobby space, and they're too small to support the additional 150 students once you get to that level. So we have looked at some options for creating 2 kind of distinct men's and women's rooms, expanding the amount of fixtures in each of those locations. We already know that we're getting into some of the plumbing issues that are occurring with the interior line of the building. So since that's already being affected, it makes sense to go ahead and just do that now as part of the space instead of just waiting until this is done. So what that looks like, the existing 2 restrooms will be demolishing the demising wall between them, infilling the other door location. This will create the men's room here into one kind of cohesive restroom. The women's restroom will be an expanded restroom that goes into the existing lab space directly to the east of it. But we'll have a door directly off of the main lobby. So we will be adding in a plumbing chase wall for that, but this is the kind of right time to do all of that work based on having already getting to deal with the sanitary and kind of getting ahead of the completion of this fit out here. So that's kind of a quick update on that. We also kind of discussed there's 2 restrooms here currently that are feeding these offices. There's a need for a staff restroom that's kind of a dedicated area. So what we looked at was going ahead and creating this into a single restroom. The existing restrooms don't meet ADA code, so we have to expand that out to allow for wheelchair access and turn radius. So then also being able to access that off of the main lobby instead of having to go through an office. So that's another kind of little bit of a tweak, I think, maybe since you all have seen the plans last, that's been updated there. So if you all have any questions about that, feel free, totally open.
When we went on that tour, in the area where the car lift, are we going to take all of that out? Are we going to clear that out and make it a big open space?
It'll have to be an open space. There's also, if you recall, when you go into that room here, you actually walk through this door, look back towards the overhead door that opens up the back of the garage door.
Yeah.
There is a large storage room that's over on this side with a loft above it.
Yes.
So that's coming out in order to kind of open this up.
Right.
The loft and the storage room that exists here where the food warming kitchen is, that will remain as is. The construction systems between the 2 is different. This one actually has like a wood framed loft on it. This is a concrete cap. So it kind of makes sense to cut that there in terms of the demolition portion of the work. Okay. But yes, the lift, all of those items that are in there. There's also a large switchgear, the existing switchgear in the building is actually in this corner. The service comes off the line, power pole line out the back. So the new switchgear that's gonna be for this building will be a dedicated electrical closet that gives them right about the same amount of access off that power line.
Did we ever find a place to put the nurse?
We've got some options in this new plan, especially with kind of isolating those office areas in the front.
Okay. Because I know they said that was kind of a thing right now, they don't really have a place for the nurse.
They
Well, and they
just
only
got
have a
staff
part-time,
bathroom. Yeah, they've only got, she's only there 2 hours a day right now.
but if we expand, we're probably gonna need one.
Yep.
Yeah.
That, and then the flex space, we thought about using in part as a cafeteria too, but not
For
just
time.
a standard cafeteria. We're really looking bigger, like cafe, like something really special that you see in some of the newer design buildings. It's multi-purpose, so you're not just, so we can really utilize the space that we've got. I know that was another conversation that we'd had.
And I think we've got some other options if we need to expand by an officer. So we added the SRO office here, just to the north of the restrooms to have a dedicated space there. But, you know, we can look at some other options in the building as well. I think there's some spaces that could probably give and take a little bit if need be.
Yeah, I think she kinda got forgotten because she is only there for a couple hours, and then it was
But
like,
that may
oh,
change.
yeah. Yeah, if we're gonna expand that many students, she's gonna need to be there more.
Yeah, we've discussed that, and it's tied a little bit to water access too, so we've got some thoughts on that.
Okay.
We had a structural engineer with SDG in Nashville come out a week and a half ago and look at the building. We do have some cracking. There's significant cracking on the back wall here. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. So this is also concrete masonry unit construction. So all those walls around the building are load bearing. So the joists that run across the building are bearing on these walls. This is an 8-inch deep CMU unit. So typically for a wall that size and high, we switch over to a 12. So it's a little bit undersized for the height that it's going. The building also doesn't have any control joints. So the saw cut joints that they have to allow the expansion and contraction of the masonry during temperature shifts is not present on the back of that building. So what that's caused it to do is certain courses of the masonry are kind of expanding and tracking against each other. So we have some kind of step cracking in the building. We're gonna look at some ways that we could potentially resolve that. Not that that's a necessarily critical thing, but we may be looking at some methods for adjusting that as
Mediation.
Okay, anybody else have any more questions? All right, well, thank you. That's just some acknowledgements on the. All right, Ms. Kelly, acknowledgement of iReady update.
Good evening. The first thing on our agenda tonight with regards to instruction is to report on our iReady data. So just as a reminder, iReady serves as our universal screener that we administer 3 times throughout the year. In the fall of this school year, we reported on that first window, which gave just our initial data points. So tonight, we're excited to showcase our window 2 data and also be able to compare window 1 to window 2. So you'll see on every slide moving forwards, and I won't go through and pinpoint exactly every single slide as far as the numbers, but we are very excited that we are showing growth and progress across the district, every grade level, with regards to math and reading. District-wide, we have decreased the amount of students that are 2 or more grade levels below, so the red, by 10%, that is district-wide. And we have improved the green at the bottom, which is on or above grade level, by also 10% with regards to reading. So as you go through and look at each of those slides and the comparisons, ideally, we want the red to reduce and we want the green to increase, and we have done just that. So super, super excited with the growth that we are displaying across the district. So shout out to all of our students, our teachers, and our administrators, because what we're doing is working, and this is evident. So we are going to continue on this same path that we are on. So we're going to be consistent. We'll continue to monitor. We will do another iReady window this spring, and then at the end of the school year, we will come back and show those results. So I'm very excited at the end of the year that we'll have even more gains to show you all at that time. Okay. Do y'all have any questions?
That's great.
Yeah, we're super excited.
Some pretty good growth.
And it goes through and it maps out the reading, math, and then also with regards to phonics as well. You'll notice that with kindergarten, they have only taken one assessment. They'll take another one again in the spring. So we'll have that comparison for them. But they take a different screener in the fall. So showing great growth across the board, phonics as well.
Is phonics only for first and second grade?
The screener just looks at kindergarten, first and second with regards to phonics. If students are scoring below grade level in third or even upper grades, we can get that screener, those results on them at that point. But specifically just pulling out K through 2.
That's great.
No, and to reiterate, the magic happens in the classroom, right? So even though, Ms. Fitton and our staff are great supports, and the board is providing resources, our teachers are working their tails off.
Exactly.
And when you see novice and grade level reducing and proficiency increasing at 10 to 20%, third grade, actually 30 to 50%. And reading, again,
Make great
let me be
gains.
clear, we're not there, all right? There's work to be done. I want to, rose-colored glasses this thing, but I do want to brag on our staff for their tireless efforts to support our kids. So, thank you.
Okay. So the second item underneath instruction is to approve our comprehensive district improvement plan, which is also known as the CDIP. This is an annual requirement with the state where we focus on improvement planning. We do have a CDIP committee that engages in this process, so it is not done in isolation. We have administrators and teachers from all schools or all grade spans represented, and we arrive at a district improvement plan, and schools also engage in the same process with a school improvement plan. With the district improvement plan, there are 7 required goals that are listed that we must look at, and that is looking at our reading and our math scores, science, social studies, and writing, our achievement gap, our English learner progress, quality of school climate and safety, post-secondary readiness, and our graduation rate. The goals identified within this planning process are already familiar, as you all embedded them into the board goals that you all initiated earlier this month, so that everything is cohesive and congruent and aligned across the district with the board and also this improvement process. Each one of the 7 requirements that I just now listed, each of them have a goal. The goal is a long-term goal, which is 3 to 5 years. And we chose to do a 5-year goal, so setting it out to 2028. And then underneath of each of those goals are an objective where we determine short-term objectives to be attained by the end of that current school year. All of our goals are aligned with the Kentucky Summative Assessment, so the KSA, so our state test that we take at the end of the year. So once we get those state results, we take those, analyze, form a committee, and then we determine what our goals are for the district. And then we will continue to monitor those. Throughout this planning process, it identifies the strategies we're going to use, which activities, how we're going to measure whether or not we're making gains and success, progress monitoring, and then what funding sources. Also, just want to remind that the district improvement plan also focuses on the district, so all grade levels, elementary, middle school, and high school, whereas the specific school improvement planning process is just specific to that particular school.
Yeah, this looks really good.
We tried to really tighten it down and be intentional.
Do you all have any questions?
I love when Kelly's
It's pretty awesome.
on the move there.
And we get that on
You know it's
record.
gonna be clean.
So recording Kelly Fitton is awesome.
We have a great team. There is a great team behind all of this work. Nothing is done in isolation.
That's a great job. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive district improvement plan.
Motion by Ms. Hall,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Dorsey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
And the third item underneath instruction is the introduction of an instructional spotlight. Our focus is on instruction, so we want to make sure that we're highlighting just that. So I'm going to turn it over to one of our instructional specialists to give you an overview of what this spotlight will look like every single month. Allison.
The district academic team is excited to launch the Instructional Spotlight. This is an opportunity over the next few months for each school to highlight something instructionally. While there are countless great things happening in every building, we have asked each school to limit it to talk to you guys about one thing tonight. Otherwise, we might be here all night. So we are going to start off tonight with Justice Elementary and Baker Intermediate. And I'm going to first turn it over to Ms. Maldonado and Mr. Daniel. I'm just glad I get to go. Announce this
Right,
thing. So before I get into the instructional spotlight for Justice, I wanted to go into a little bit of the background. This summer I was doing a little bit of research and I ran across a quote by Douglas Reeves, and he is very well known in educational leadership. And the quote was, "The single greatest influence on the professional practices of teachers is the direct observation of other teachers." And so that quote really resonated with me, and it challenged me as the leader of Justice. And I thought, how am I ensuring that the teachers, that the staff at Justice have the opportunity to experience and to observe each other in a way that's going to make an impact on student achievement? And so from that, I thought we are going to begin professional learning visits this school year. Professional learning visits are nothing new. They go by a different name, but any high achieving school you will find does find a way to facilitate for that for their teachers in some kind of way. And so I thought, if we can just make sure that our teachers have the opportunity to get into their classrooms, to see the great instructional things that are happening, the teaching, the learning that's going on with our students, then we can be our own change makers within our school. And so we started the professional learning visits. Those began this November. We had our very first visit, but I knew as launching something that could be very daunting for a staff and saying, okay, everyone go forth, go into each other's classrooms, receive each other and know what to look for. We had to be very measured in our approach. And so initially we started small. So the visits, when you would go into a classroom for teachers, they were short in duration, 5 to 7 minutes. We focused on the student learning. So what are the students doing? What questions are they answering? How are they engaging with each other? Then we asked the teachers to take something back. So what is positive feedback that then you could relay to your team members, the teachers that you observed? And then what is some positive praise that you could leave for the teachers whose classrooms that you were in? And then Mr. Daniel's going to talk a little bit about, about what that kind of process looked like and the next steps in our vision moving forward.
So Justice each Thursday is our professional learning community day. So each grade level's planning period is used to grow in some way professionally together. So we chose a day with a schedule for each grade level to go and visit another grade level. They would take time, as Ms. Maldonado said, 5 to 7 minutes within classrooms within that grade level, and they would observe and they would see what is happening. You know, one of the great things that we do during the summer and on some of these days that are professional development days is we professional develop with teachers together as a community. But then once we actually get into the school year, no teacher actually sees another teacher teach. They're stuck in a classroom and they do wonderful things in there. But as we walk through classrooms, we see each teacher do so many great things, and being able to spread that wealth out to these teachers was just a wonderful experience. So they went and spent some time in another grade level's classroom during their professional learning time. They came back and we had a discussion on what they saw. And while yes, there were some things that they saw that gave them comfort of, oh, okay, I'm not the only one dealing with this issue. I'm not the only one that's struggling to try to find a solution in this area. But they saw a lot of positive things. They saw some great examples of behavior strategy. They saw some great examples of questioning techniques. They saw some great examples of how teachers relate content to their student, even on a different level. It was something that they each really enjoyed. And it allowed them to kind of get a glimpse on some of the wonderful teaching that's happening within their own building that they weren't aware of before. So after a discussion and leaving that positive praise, which by the way was a wonderful part of it, the teachers, even though they knew they were going to get a positive note, there is no bad time to give a positive note, even if it's expected. And the culture and the climate on that day was much higher than on a normal day. But after having that discussion, what kind of came of that naturally was, I want to do this more. I want to see this more. I want to spend more time with some of these teachers and pick their brain, and how can I use this to make myself a better teacher. And so they asked if they could set up times to not just within this type of situation, but also to go in on a one-on-one basis of, can I spend more direct time within these teachers. So we are working on an avenue to get these teachers back within those classrooms and giving them time to do that. But on a greater scale, we're going to participate in this type of professional learning again in February 15th, of which each of you are invited to come. We would love to have you in our building and to see this day as it comes across, because it's a wonderful day for our teachers. It's a wonderful day for our students to get to see some of the other teachers within the building, and any type of positivity within the school day is always encouraged and gladly accepted. And there's just a wonderful experience for everybody within that. So,
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And now we'll ask that Baker Intermediate highlight their instructional.
You're on a clock mount.
We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank Mrs. Fithen for giving me 45 minutes tonight. Baker. I'm sure the clock's already started, so I'll go ahead and get started. A lot of great work going on at Justice, and very similarly, the acronym PLC, Professional Learning Community, that's a fancy term that means it's an opportunity for teachers to get together and make decisions of what's best for kids. And we meet at Baker every Tuesday. We have 9 different groups that meet, and when I say groups, we're talking about departments. They look at student data, they plan fun activities, they're embedding Kagan in their lessons, and we also use that time. Our PLCs are the launching pad for everything we do academically. We strengthen what we do well, and then we use our PLCs to also address where we need to grow. And 2 areas that we're going to talk about tonight. One is a big strength of Baker, and it's our co-teaching model at Baker, where an EC teacher and a Gen Ed teacher comes together and they work with our students in small groups. And the area that we're working on in our PLCs is our writing. And so Mrs. Ware is going to talk to us about our co-teaching model, and Mrs. Hill is going to talk to us about our writing plan and our writing work that we've done so far this school year. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Hello. So the co-teaching model that I'm going to talk about is exactly what it sounds like. You've got 2 teachers and they're working together in the classroom. You have your EC teacher, who's the teacher that is specialized in meeting the needs of students no matter where they are, no matter what their disability. And then you have your content teacher. And they meet together, and there's lots of different models that you'll see in a co-teaching room, but the one that we do really well and that most of our teachers do, in fact, people from across the district have come and watched this, is station teaching. And what station teaching is the students are divided into small groups. So they might work, I'll give an example of a math classroom. They might be getting new content in a small group of 6 with the content lead teacher. And then maybe they move over here and their EC or their special needs teacher is meeting their needs in a different way based on what they need in that group. And they're placed together in those small groups based on what they need. And then maybe they travel over here and they work with an instructional assistant on maybe some spiral review of things they've done. And then there's often an independent station where they're just practicing. And in order for this to work well and seamlessly, we use our PLCs. So with the PLCs Mr. Mounts talked about in the afternoons on Tuesdays, the lead teachers, the content teachers work together and plan. And then on Wednesdays, we've dedicated time specifically for our special needs teachers to meet with those lead teachers. All right, this is the plan for the week. How do we modify? What are our stations going to look like? How much time are we going to need at each station? Those kind of logistics, so that it'll work well. And it does work well. We have several teams that where the EC teacher has worked with the same group of teachers, and the longer that goes, the better they get, which is ideal. And we're real proud of our station teaching, and it's something that I think that we do really well.
All right, that's it. The other PLC that we wanted to highlight specifically was our 5th grade ELA group. Last year, as a district academic team, we worked to develop a writing plan K through 8. And since our students are assessed in writing when they get to 5th grade, we have worked hard in that PLC to implement the writing plan and really put a focus on kind of making sure that we're bringing to light different writing activities and opportunities for our students. So recently in December, our 5th grade ELA group put on a writing scrimmage for our students. And then after students participated in that scrimmage, teachers brought back their student work and held discussions based on what they were able to see. So they talked about things that were going well in their classrooms in terms of writing, talked about next steps on writing with their classrooms. So that ELA group really had to be vulnerable in order to kind of come to the table, bring their own student work, and talk about where their students were and where they wanted to go. So we just wanted to kind of give a shout out to 5th grade ELA and really implementing the writing plan, and then working hard to do next steps to bring writing to light. So we're excited about that. Okay.
Time. I'm dizzy.
Okay. Before Alicia comes up here, I'm gonna call a 5-minute recess real quick, and then we'll start back with Miss Ellis. It is 7:51. So we'll just make it 8 o'clock.
Ashley, are you
Saturday.
What time is it?
8:02.
8:02 p.m. Miss Ellis. Good evening.
Alright, so we have up first, I think, Ramona, it's the Phoenix renovation. So this is just the paperwork formality. You are actually, we talked about this in the prior, I think it was the November meeting, we discussed it about, gave you some specs and the drawings and all that and the estimated cost. So this is the official BG to submit to Katie for paperwork.
You all have any questions? Comments, anything? Not, does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the BG one for Phoenix renovation, 21.-249.
Motion by Ms. Hall,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Dorsey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Consider approval of the new procedure 02.4331 AP.1 school staffing procedures.
Okay, so I think Ms. Ritchie's probably the only one that's gonna remember this, but historically, we used to have a very big staffing allocation document. Very large with all the information described in it. And so basically, we haven't done that document for a few years and you've just gotten an Excel file. So we've never had like the official procedures in writing written down because it was in that staffing allocation document, basically, all of this. So what we're bringing to you is, this is how we staff. This is what we base that Excel file on that you all see that outlines the school. So we're just putting it in writing and putting it in our procedure manual along with our policy so that it's very specific and written down and the expectations are known and it's not a question of do I get this or don't I get this, or it's in black and white approving the procedure, and it would be something that if we chose to change anything, you would then as a board, we would review it, bring it back, you would change the procedure. And that's how we are gonna staff our staffing allocation formula. Any questions of anything you saw in here?
I did not. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so. There was only one thing. It was, one was based on 23, and I think the elementary school was based on like 24.
Yes, so that is actually, statute requires that the primary grades be based on a 24. Fourth grade could actually be 28, but we've chosen to lower it to 24. So all elementary is 24. Statute for the higher grades is actually, I think, 29 and 31, but we've chosen to lower it to 23 to give them the allocation for their staff at a lower rate, to provide more teachers for students.
I was just curious.
Yeah. So we're staying within the statutes, which is outlined in the policy. So the policy specifically states what statutes we follow, which then lists those ratios. And then this is what we are choosing to deviate from the statutes, but still staying in compliance with statutes.
Any more questions? If not, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the new procedure 02.4331.
Motion by Mr. Dorsey,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Consider approval of draft budget for fiscal year 2025.
So this is very preliminary. I want y'all to understand that because at this point we know very little. We're waiting on the legislation. Mr. Howard's got some more to share about that later in the meeting. But basically we're just kind of going on best case what we know at this point. And so the major things are outlined of what I changed, which is not a whole lot. Beginning balance is a result of kind of just looking at where we stand right now and seeing our contingency and forecasting out what we think is going to happen, which we knew this was going to go down from where we are because we've done a lot of one-time expenditures using into that pot of money. So this was, an expected decrease. And then the other stuff is based on just events that we know at this point. So I've listed those out, historical averages. We know we have the lease with the clinic, so that increases. We're suspecting property values assumption going up, and then that we would adopt that highest tax rate that we are available to adopt with increasing our revenues to 4%. So with that, the overall revenue right now at this point, from where we're in the working budget, we're saying is gonna go down about $508,000 with what we know at this point with SEEK and, again, legislation coming out. Some major things could change and that number could be very different when we stand here in May and have a conversation.
Okay.
So it's just kind of the slides that you see every time, just kind of preparing you all for looking at only the single year, no rollover or anything like that, or contingency, and kind of what that looks like in our reoccurring receipts versus reoccurring expenditures and such. The biggest expenditure change is salaries and benefits. So one, it's based on that procedure you all just approved for our SBDM councils, which the reason we're being very generous in that ratio below what statute requires is because we're hitting the ESSER cliff. So we know our buildings have been staffing and lowering their classroom sizes with grant funding that we are no longer going to have going forward. So we're trying to help prepare. Some of them have Title Is that they're going to use going forward. But with that ratio of lowering that in this going forward allocation helps retain some of those teachers instead of having everybody on grants that we have to get, unfortunately, not renew at one time. So we're trying to kind of ease into that and continue to help that decrease. And we know our kids still need another good year of reduced classroom sizes and the extra staff in the buildings. So that's kind of what that is reflected of the salary changes. This does, at this point, put our contingency a little over 5%. We're required to have 2%. So this is kind of the minimum that is the recommendation. This is really about 3 months' worth of expenditures for us, which is kind of the accounting recommendation of what you hold in reserve. So that is still with you all having the board set aside of the rotation for furniture and I just lost the furniture. Playgrounds and just maintenance, you know, emergency maintenance expenditures and roofs, yes. So any questions on general fund? Like I said, very preliminary at this point. So the rest of the funds, again, kind of similar to what working food service, we've not changed at all at the point of draft budget. We're going to look more closely with Dr. Muncie going forward into the May budget, what we would like to change about that. We're going to sit down and have a meeting. Capital outlay at this point is based on what we think SEEK will be, but we don't 100% know. Same thing with building fund. Until the final legislation comes out, we don't really know what those are going to be. The debt service lists all the bonds that we have, so that's built into the budget of what we are aware of at this point. So future considerations, kind of I said it through this whole thing, you know, any adjustments that we make, enrollment changes, SEEK funding, legislation decisions, what PBA actually comes out as. So there's still a lot of things up in the air right now. So this is a hard budgeting cycle to really give you good concrete data. So we are fulfilling a requirement that we have to show you all. We're thinking about the budget going forward, and you all have to basically acknowledge that you've been presented with the budget as of January 31st, but we will come back in May with much more data than we have right now to provide you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? No, would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the draft budget for FY 2025.
Motion by Ms. Hall.
I'll
Second that.
Oh, you going to? You go for it.
Sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. You were slower this time, so I thought you needed me to jump in there. Consider approval of school facilities construction committee.
So every biennium, the SFCC makes an offer towards our debt. So this is our offer of what will be for the next fiscal year for a priority one project that we could bond, which we know with our current status, you know, bonding is kind of a little bit down the road for us, but this would be available next time we sell a bond. Part of the availability is still fund for us. So we just have to officially accept it and basically say we're gonna follow the escrow terms, that if we have anything in capital, we will set it to the side and escrow it, because we're accepting this offer. We always end up spending the majority of our capital when it comes to capital funds requests that we use on maintenance or KISTA bond debt and put that in general fund. So very rarely do we have much cash that we escrow. But if we did, it's a requirement that we do that by accepting that offer.
I'll make a motion to approve the SFCC offer of assistance for annual debt service.
Motion by Mr. Dorsey. I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Acknowledgement of monthly CCPS financial update.
Okay, so your current package has the reconciled version of November, because we, as early as we had our meeting in December, I was unable to get all of that reconciled in time, so it has since been reconciled. And then you also have your December, and it's reconciled as well. I just took the title off of it, but it's going forward. We will be reconciled unless we have very short meeting turnarounds. But nothing much changed, just so you know, from November to unreconciled to reconciled. We had, let's see, the only thing that hadn't been recorded, I guess it has, I'm sorry, it did change. I haven't recorded SEEK yet, so that's almost $1 million change from the unreconciled version to the reconciled. Is I hadn't done the bank statement recording. So you had SEEK and gross utility wages were the two big. So we went from 23.1 million to 24.8 million. So we were at a 41% collection to a 44% collection. So we did go up a little bit. And that is higher 5% from last year. So we're up good there. Tax rate, taxes actually stayed the same. We had already recorded tax revenue at that point. So now if you flip to December, we have more tax revenue and more revenues. So we're at 87% on our taxes recorded at December, but we've already deposited the January check, and that puts us at 92%. So we're at 92% for our property taxes, 40% for our motor vehicle. Property franchise tax are down compared to the prior year, but they're based on companies' tangibles. And so those can get paid throughout the year at any point in time, and there's not a real good consistency on our property franchise tax. So I suspect that we will probably get a good lump sum towards the end of the year when corporations start paying their taxes and doing all that kind of stuff. But overall revenues for are up to 49%. We were 46 last year, so we're trending higher revenue collection than the prior year. Expenditures are point on at 32%. We're right at the same spending rate at this point. So, any questions? Sorry, flipping between 2 months. I was making sure I was speaking the correct data.
I don't have any questions. Okay. That one was just an acknowledgement, so. All right, and your next one is authorized payments of salaries and accounts payable. Please pay the
I'll
bills.
make a motion to pay the bill.
Motion by Mr. Dorsey,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Dustin, before we go into the superintendent's report, we need to go back to the beginning where we approved the minutes. For the December 12th regular meeting. Mr. Dorsey was not here, so we need to do what now?
Rescind that vote and then just table it till next month. We
Okay.
won't have a quorum to vote on that.
Okay, so we just need a motion to rescind the vote, which I'll make that motion. if you
I'll
say.
second.
All right,
We should have known that. We were just sitting there talking about it.
all right. So all those in favor to rescind the vote, say aye.
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 Motion carries 3-0. And if you can just put that on next month there.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, now it's all you, Dustin.
All right, so as promised, this month's superintendent's report is really going to piggyback on a lot of the conversations tonight, specifically with Ms. Ellis when we're talking about funding in the legislative session. So as most people know, I know all people in education and most people that are paying attention, we're in a very large, important legislative session. And a big part of that is figuring out how much money the state is going to support public schools with, on top of many other bills. But for tonight's purposes, we're going to focus on financing and really influential leadership, which is working with our legislators to make sure we're painting a very clear picture and advocating not only for Clark County Public Schools, but for the future of the world, our kids, right? We've talked a lot about local taxes and state dollars. So I want to get into just kind of some overview and then some details. So kind of current where we're at, right, and how we got there. And then really talk about kind of what's going on right now with the current legislative session, okay? I'm also on the Superintendent Legislative Committee, so I do get updates every Friday. I try to send you guys updates with what's going on, but so the public knows we are monitoring it, working very hard. We throw out the term SEEK all the time, SEEK funding. It's an acronym. In education, we love acronyms. Everything from ARCs to IEPs to you name it. But most people don't know the history of SEEK. So SEEK is an equalization formula that really came out of the Rose case back in a long time ago, like 1990. And it basically said that even if you're a poor district, kids deserve a high quality education, right? And so SEEK is made up of local tax dollars. So that is the taxes that we get from the Sheriff's Department, property taxes, and then the state, and that lawsuit said, basically, we have an obligation to educate Kentuckians as well as a high level, okay? So it's equal parts. So SEEK stands for Support Education Excellence in Kentucky. Everybody know that? All right. Excellence, not aight or okay or good enough. Excellence in Kentucky. And so we're going to talk about what that would take. So I gave you guys a packet to kind of look through. This report was provided by the Council for Better Education. And it really talks mostly on inflation. A lot of times in politics now and in looking at is this economy good or not, we talk about inflation. Even within the last couple of years, inflation has been high. The SEEK formula has not been looked at since 2008. Okay? So we're going to talk about how all 171 districts are kind of looking at how we got here. And this report kind of lines out how we're going to get back on track, right? So providing support for education excellence in Kentucky. Now again, I do want to thank our legislature because we've been making some progress. SEEK went up the last couple of years. I know they've done a really good job of making sure our retirement for our teachers is not in danger. So that's one part of it. But the other part is now, how do we support education? And a lot of the conversation is about, frankly, teacher pay. All right? But we also have to run buses, and we also have to pay electric bills, and we also have to provide excellence. But this problem wasn't created just in the last 2 years. It's been a 15-year kind of ongoing issue. All right? And we're going to focus on inflation. So again, it didn't happen overnight. We want the buying power back of what we could buy with SEEK in 2008, and how does that translate? So think to a gallon of milk. What was it in 2008, right? And how does that translate into how much milk costs now? Well, the difference is they're not funding schools in a different way. All right, they're giving us the same basically amount of money they did in 2008. We've also only gotten funded for 69% for transportation. There's a state law that says they talk about the legislature is supposed to fund us 100%. Now again, we've made progress. They were funding us at 55%, right? So we went from 55 to 69, and we'll talk about in a little bit, they're looking at 80%. But it's still not the 100% because has fuel gone up since 2008? In 1 year, bus prices for a single bus went up $20,000. 1 year. So there is momentum, so I do want to, it's not a bashing of the, of the legislature, because they're working with us, but I think it's important to understand kind of how we got here. The staff recruitment, staff retention is significant. We talked about where does magic happen in our classrooms. If we're not paying people and we're not getting them the support they need with resources, then we lose them. So it's time to restore, again, what we're thinking is seek to the buying power of 08. Let me give you some examples. So in 2008, if you had $100, what would that look like? What would that cost be? So the same $100, you would need $139.44. Okay? So let me make it bigger. Let's say you had $1 million in 08. In 2023, that same million, you would need $1,394,000. 369 to buy the exact same thing that $1 million could buy you before. All right, so let's make it real. Clark County, you ready? Clark County, back in 2008, in the SEEK formula, and again, we had approximately the same number of students, because that's another conversation going on. We had 18 million, we got to see $18,340,413. All right, so in 08, with inflation, okay, that would mean right now, for the same buying power, we would need $25,573,303. All right, that's about $7.2 million more. And I'm just talking inflation. This is just inflation. What could I buy in 08? What would I need money-wise to buy the same things? And we're not talking about excellence, we're talking about the same as 08, 7.2 million. So the question is, what was our SEEK last year? It was not $7.2 million more, it was actually less. $18,170,425 since 08. We actually got less money from the state. Now, what is inadequate funding? How does that impact us? So if you go to your next slide, teacher and staff salaries are far behind marketplace. 25% lower compared to other professions. Again, we're talking about inflation. It also can impact meeting academic needs of students. You can see through Ms. Fitton's, we're working our tails off, and our teachers are. But we're trying to catch up. A negative impact on local property taxes. Now again, this is a 15-year problem. We got to work hard on fixing it, but we'll talk about this in just a minute. An inverse of state spending and local spending. So before, where the state would pay most of it, and we'll go over this and I'll show you a really neat graph. We're starting to go backwards, where our local taxpayers are paying to educate our kids and not the state. And we're getting to a point where poor districts are not able to provide the same education as districts who have a high tax rate. You guys think about where you're from, all right? Bus purchases are not on schedule because, again, we're only at 69% funded. Again, simply put, we can't educate our kids at an excellence level when you're funding this with 2008 money. So, the next couple pages are what's to get back on track. This is what my colleagues and I, as fellow superintendents across the state of Kentucky, are looking at. Now, again, I won't bore you with the details, but essentially it breaks it down between SEEK base, add-ons, fully funded transportation, and with increase. But again, we understand it cannot be done in this legislative session. We're looking at a 2 to 5 year, 6 year process of how do we get back on track, right? If you'll flick through there a little bit more, this is what I was talking about. Another one. Oh, there we go, baby. I told you, nice graph. So this is, you can see it's pretty clear. This is provided, this is since the Great Recession in '08. All right, SEEK funding, the base has gone clearly down. All right, as far as adjusted to inflation. You go to the next one. This is where our local taxpayers, I think this is important to note, they're paying more of the brunt, whereas the state portion has gone down. One more slide. And you can see the last time there was a lawsuit for an equity, and equity means just not equal, it's not the same. Was in 2008. Once they passed, after the Rose case and redid and started the SEEK formula, you can see inequities drastically decreased. But as you can see, as we go along, we're almost, in fact, we're higher where more wealthier districts are spending more money per kid than we are, than the poor districts. And again, most of that is absolutely due to inflation. So what we're asking is again, we be mindful that again, this is not a DNR issue, right? This is working together to provide support, education, excellence in Kentucky. So let me give you a couple kind of updates of where we're at. There's been 13 new bills that directly impact public schools that are introduced in Franklin. We're in the infancy of this session, okay? But again, I do want to, I know Senator Elkins has met with me already 2 or 3 times. I'm going to work with Representative Dotson, making sure they understand kind of where we're at. The big bill coming out as far as the budget is House Bill 6. It's again, early stages, it just came out. It essentially, it does some good things, all right? So they're increasing funding. Right now, the proposals go from $4,200 to $4,368 next year per student, and $4,455 in 25-26. Okay, like I said before, it also increases proposed transportation funding from 69% to almost 80%. The other thing it's built into is also provide kind of a reimbursement, not 100% reimbursement, but $20,000 per SRO, and also some support for mental health services. Still no support for professional development, but again, they understand we need to spend more money on education, right? Now, with that said, I started with, we are trying to compensate our teachers. And this was a survey that went out to every superintendent, talking about pay increases, because if you've not been hit up by teachers yet on, are we gonna give raises? You will. Right now, out of the 60, I would say 65 districts that responded, 53% of those districts, based on what House Bill 6 was gonna give us, okay, money-wise, we'll not get in the weeds on that, I'll talk to you guys about that, but a 0 to 2% raise is what they felt like they could give. 53%. 32% felt like they could do a 2 to 3% raise. So 0 to 3%, that's 85% of the districts. 8% thought they could maybe pull off 3 to 4. 2% were going to cut salaries because they could not afford them anymore, even the salaries they had. And then a couple more percent didn't know what they were going to do. Right now, talking with, again, I'm a truth teller. Talking with Ms. Ellis, our Chief Financial Officer, we're more in the 0 to 2% right now, based on because our property values are increasing. So guess what happens to our SEEK money? If it continues to be inequitable, even though we may go up $1.4 million with the new per student seat base, we are going to be offset because we have too much growth, about 700,000, which is going to put us up about 600, and we're in the -5 from last year. So that's zero. If we can somehow, again, once, Ms. Ellis does a great job, budgeting very conservatively. So we suspect to have a little more than that. But we're, right now, nothing else changes, and we put every dollar that's proposed, every dollar. 600, it's cost about $300,000 to do a 1% raise just for teachers in Clark County, just so you guys know, that's per year. So with the 600 we're projecting, that's about 2%. Now, I tell you all this because I want to be on the forefront of not only, again, inflation's important, and we need help. We need help over the next 5 years on making sure that's better. To catch up faster, I would propose 4,500 year one and 48 year two. Again, that moves us down the line farther because we're going to have to get to about the numbers 50 to make sure we are back on track. SEEK has to be around 5,600. Again, we're not going to get there in 2 years. But I will work with our team tirelessly to continue to work with our state representatives and really to bring this to light, because our local taxpayers also need to know the reason we keep having raised taxes is because we can't run schools without local taxes. So until we start working with our legislature and making sure they understand that they've got to continue to support education excellence, we're going to be stagnant, and we're not going to provide the greatness for our kids. And we're going to work just as hard, but we really need to get back on track. Any questions? I didn't mean to belabor, but I really want to go into some details because it followed up with our draft budget and moving forward.
Is there anything we can do to advocate for these things?
Absolutely. I think reaching out to the legislators, sending emails, I think working through me, working through KSBA, your board organization, I think there's plenty of time. I just think that we're talking about 2% to 3% for most of the state of Kentucky, at least on that one survey. And again, not these and ours, but Daniel Cameron ran on guaranteeing 5% across the board. The governor's at 11. Well, based on the funding that I'm seeing, and I'm direct, numbers are numbers. We can only do 2-3%. That's where we're at, based on House Bill 6. So I just think that we just have to make sure that everybody understands that, including our legislators. Again, not trying to pile on. We didn't get here overnight. Most of these guys had nothing to do with this, but we look 15 years back, we've been going in the wrong direction.
Mr. Elkins and Mr. Dotson been receptive of talking with you and?
Absolutely, Mr. Elkins specifically, and in fact, he was here on Friday, looking at our brand new daycare and touring the district. But I'm excited about moving forward and making sure they understand as well how to help us.
He seems like he's really involved, wants to be involved with the school system.
And I know, talking to other superintendents that he represents, I know Tim Spencer up in Menifee and Dr. Thompson over in Montgomery, and he's met with Dave Evans over in Bath. So he's been pretty active trying to meet with superintendents to hear what the need is. So I appreciate that. Now, there's a lot of other bills that we're tracking that does impact education, and we'll continue to give you updates. I just want to be very specific and talk budget since we were talking about the draft budget tonight.
And maybe if people don't follow politics, to know that this is a budget year. So the legislature is making decisions about money.
About money.
I mean, there's all kinds of advocacy going on for everyone that needs money. So it's just a very important year for the legislature, for sure.
No, and I know they've got a tough job. Again, everybody wants money, not just public education. So I would just argue that we're the most important because we dictate what the world looks like 10 to 15 years from now. I'm a little biased, but that's my opinion.
So thank you for that update. I think it's great that you're on that committee and you're able to keep up with those things. So one of my part-time jobs is I teach policy to social workers. So I definitely am keeping up with our state chapter, I just met with them on Monday, and she updates us on things. And there are lots, and she said there are so many bills, they can't keep up with them, that there's so many things going in that those advocacy groups are having a hard time keeping up with everything. So, and you just never know what might get kind of slid in, so.
Yeah, no, and again,
Yeah.
they understand they have to get more, and they understand too that teachers need paid more. Our legislators understand that. They do. I've had conversations with a ton of them, and they understand that's a hot topic. I think figuring out how you do it and how do you ensure that it's going to teachers, I think that is the conversation at this point. But I appreciate, again, every legislator that I've talked to understands that, and at least, tells me they're pro public schools.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dustin.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now we are on to the consent agenda items. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve those.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
All right, motion by Ms. Hall,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Dorsey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dorsey,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0, and we are adjourned at 8:39.